can imagine. Let's go ahead and start the recording. Hold on, let me try that again. If I can see it. We'll go virtual. And now we're good. All right. We're right here at 6:30 p.m. So I'll begin by welcoming everybody to the October meeting of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. Let's see, who we got going? I'm looking online, see who I might be missing. Okay, so we'll go. So here in the room, I'm John Davey. I'm the chair this year. Vice Chair Tim White. I don't see John Raslier or Brooke Washburn or other vice chairs, but they might chime in a little later virtually. Secretary Bob Williams here, or Robert if you prefer.
I don't care.
Okay, Mr. Williams. And so we're going to go ahead and get underway. The first thing we do at all our meetings, we call the meeting to order and we do the adoption of our agenda. So if there's no objection to what's on the agenda, and none here, that's easy enough. The very, very first thing we do is we like to hear from the public. So if there's anybody here in the room that has a public comment on matters that are not on this agenda, there are microphones floating around. You got one, Chris? So when you use a microphone, as long as it's green, speakers up here, you're good to go. Well, not mine, yours are different.
So just a couple of quick comments. Events that are coming up this week, Friday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Business Showcase and I Love Film. That'll be at the Forney Building at the fairgrounds, starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's free for any of the public to come. And they'll have food, wine, sampling. They'll have all kinds of booze, like I'm going to have El Dorado Gold 1848 will be there, and so will the El Dorado County Historical Society, and we'll have our booth. There's always things for the kids, so I just wanted to let you know that that's this Friday, the 20th,
Awesome.
4 to 8. And then the next day is at 10 o'clock at the Placerville Union Cemetery is Save the Graves. This is about the third or fourth year, and this one's dedicated to the Blair family. And so it's a complete Blair family event. There'll be different cemeteries, headstones that they'll be doing theater kind of things. I don't know if any of you've been there, but they have people who actually represent them and they speak as if they are them. And that's their grave right by them. So it's pretty exciting. There is a charge for that. I'm not sure what that is, but it's usually minimal. And that'll be at 10 o'clock at the Placerville Union Cemetery on Saturday.
Awesome.
I just wanted to mention that to you. Thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Chris. And I did, oh, I'm sorry. I can grab one from the podium if we have to.
I would like to make a
You want
public
to go
comment.
first? Okay.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, no, because John Raslier is here virtually, but if you want to go, John Raslier, we're going to go virtually in the room first, and we're going to come to you, okay? Okay, Bob, go
Yes,
time.
okay. Yes, last meeting, we disclosed something we just learned about, which was a increase in the Mello-Roos for Carson Creek, which is basically entirely heritage residents, a senior community. A week and 2 days ago, the Board of Supervisors voted to increase next year's Mello-Roos by 24%. By selling an additional $7 million of bonds. There are a number of issues that we brought up and now have provided additional information on that we are requesting, and by tomorrow you both have and all the supervisors will have a formal request to reconsider. There are just a number of issues procedurally that were not followed. I believe very firmly that we are not provided all the information needed to make an adequate decision. And we'll outline in that letter
Okay.
where those issues are. But very, very clearly, the fact that the chairman of the board of the supervisors was not aware that she would need to recuse herself because her parents actually lived in the same community that's going to be taxed 24 additional %. So our response is about 3 pages long. I would urge the supervisors to put this on your agenda as quickly as possible before you get too far down the line on the bond issue. And I think you'll see that there's some very compelling reasons for it on a procedural basis. But one thing that Supervisor Turnbull did state, and I thank you for, was the simple fact that it was wrong and improper for a senior community to have to, especially many of us who are on a fixed income, to have to now suddenly step forward when we were not apprised and fully disclosed about this increase. I fortunately am not going to be one of those who are going to lose my home, but there are those who will. This weekend, I had 4 people come up to me, 2 women and one fellow, in tears. They're saying, "My God, I am only going to get 3% in my." They're living entirely on Social Security, 3.2% increase, and all that increase next year is going to be eaten up by increased Medicare prices. So basically, there'll be a negative increase for all Social Security people. Now we find that our Mello-Roos will be increased by 24%. So any increase they might have had has been totally wiped out by that factor. This is a real human situation. I would expect that both of you and all the supervisors will have people come knocking on your door and expressing the concern that just because Lennar suddenly comes up with more requests for reimbursement, that there couldn't be a stop and review of the process to understand what impact it has on individual humans. And the reason why I bring it up again on this meeting, because this Mello-Roos was part of an earlier agenda that I'm sure you must have had in APAC in 2014. There have certainly been subsequent Mello-Roos kind of situations brought up, even as recently as several months ago with Valley View East Ridge proposal. And in that case, we learned on that Mello-Roos that the controller, who I think the world of, but the controller indicated that Mello-Roos would be tied to a condition, a pay-as-you-go condition, that if there's any excess money left, then the county gets it. Now, up to this point, we have no idea where any of this money that has been set forth in the $7 million bond is going to. It hasn't been disclosed. It's required to be disclosed. With this $7 million, with the previous 2 bonds, that's $40 million. There's been no disclosure of where that $40 million has gone. We just have some big statements of, well, EID got a lion's share. Well, whoever had to pay for it for the next 25 years deserves to know where that money's gone to. And the county board of supervisors needs to take into account the human factors involved. So I ask both of you to put this on your agenda as quickly as possible. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up, and I know we discussed earlier before we were trying to figure out how Bob can address this at the meeting. This is a project that was approved years ago, and it's an existing CFD, Mello-Roos. And typically, I was going back through some of the APAC stuff, the records that I had available, and it didn't seem like we spent a lot of time analyzing Mello-Roos. It's controlled separate from a lot of stuff county planning normally does. It's an external thing, it's a state law. But like for East Ridge, since it was coming up as a sort of a revisit of a new development agreement, we had questions about, well, how does the pay-go work and how does the county get money back? Because typically a CFD is for infrastructure in the district. And so does that money that comes back, does it stay in that CFD district to take care of the new East Ridge development, which, you know, it's an old project, but it has basically been revisited. So that was why we looked at that. And even some of the other ones, we just looked at, oh, funded by CFD, and we just kind of cruised by it. And, you know, I know that when we first started hearing about it, we had questions about, I started looking, it's like, well, I know, you know, is there a cap on, you know, the way you raise rates, or, you know, the levy? Or is it just whatever the, you know, the max bond issue is, you can max it out and that's just how it works. So I was unclear on it, and I looked at the Prop 218, how it touches Mello-Roos, and it's a bowl of mystery. And when you try to look at it at a cursory level, so I know that obviously APAC, we're not reviewing it, it's not a project. So, but I think we have a lot of members of the community that are interested in it, and I'm hoping that you know, there's some more transparency in terms of how that process works. There are a lot of other Mello-Roos here in El Dorado County, specifically El Dorado Hills. So hopefully there's some clarity so people understand what might be before them later. Did you have anything on it? Or?
Well, no, I think historically APAC has really looked at CEQA. You know, does the planning process in the county has, if CEQA is required, California Environmental Quality, have the 13 areas that CEQA looks at as the environmental impact report or the negative declaration, whatever the process is that this particular project is going through, has it addressed those issues? We've never really focused on things like Mello-Roos or anything else with respect to the financing of the infrastructure that is reimbursed to the developer through the Mello-Roos process. Now, maybe that's something that we want to add going forward. But again,
and to that point, Tim, we should ask ourselves too, why certain developers roll that kind of infrastructure into the cost of the home, whereas some of the developers do not. And then that surprises in the, well, in the Carson Creek Pacific Plan area, there's Four Seasons that doesn't have Mello-Roos because the developer said, we're going to roll it in and be honest with our future homeowners.
How long ago was Four Seasons built?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Things change.
Well, it does change. It does change, but the real question here is, in the future, and then this, I'm quite convinced is not going to go away easily, this particular issue. But at least with regard to heritage, will not go away. But in terms of future developments, I think that we as an organization, as APAC, needs to factor in those things that impact the entire scope of the development. And we need to take a more broad view as to what the relationship of all these things are one to another, and not just piecemeal the issues. So anyway, I'll fight a soapbox right now.
Okay.
John,
Well,
thank
no,
you.
you know, I think a lot of us, just as people who are looking at these things happening in the community when development comes along, it's something we hadn't seen. I know a lot of Toronto residents were concerned about the extent of the Mello-Roos that funded, you know, rescue and both all the school districts, and you know what the timing was like on that, and
It wasn't in perpetuity. Now
yeah, I know.
not.
Now it's changed.
Change,
Yeah,
yeah, but anyway.
but yeah, that's the thing. It's, you know, when we talk about the Bass Lake Hills, a lot of that was you know, put up front by the developer, and then the Mello-Roos and subsequent development will also help pay back for the reimbursement for the things that the county needed for the improvement of Bass Lake Road, the realignment of Country Club, things like that. So that's, you know, we see it then, and then after a project's approved, we don't, you know, it's the residents getting a property tax statement that really.
Well, the auditor controller explained a little bit differently than that. There's a requirement for disclosure at this time of escrow.
Yeah.
The purchase-
Oh, yeah, without question, yeah.
Person purchased property, they're disclosed what the Mello-Roos assessment might be. And in this case, it was set at $50 million is the estimated value.
Okay, that was the max. Yeah.
And now we're looking at 40 million with the cap on it. The Board of Supervisors did require Lennar to submit a letter saying they
Yeah, I
would
saw
come
that.
and ask for any more. So from that perspective, some of these Mello-Roos pay 100%. This
Yeah.
one is capped basically at 80% of what was proposed. And according to our auditor controller, that all has to be disclosed. And so I think if you go through all the
That is
paperwork, you'll
correct.
find it in there.
Well,
But
no,
how
no,
many of us-
actually,
How
John.
many of us bother, worry
No,
about
no,
that
no,
stuff?
Well,
We buy
no,
a house, right?
let me address that. You did bring that up. And I believe that, again, I admire the hell out of Mr. Harn. And I think he's a very thorough and honest individual. And this is not directed toward any member of the board or anybody associated with this bond issue. It's not a personal issue. It's a matter of, was disclosure actually given? Did we buy with certain assumptions? And yes, we did receive in our package a statement of what our maximum tax rate would be. But we are also told at the time we bought that it would gradually go down as the number of residents increase.
Yeah, that's the
And
number
in
of
point of
units
fact,
populated.
in point of fact, over the last 2 years, it has gone down. But suddenly now a new $7 million bond issue is now floated. And now it's going back up to the maximum, plus 2% annually thereafter for the next 25 years. Again, we were assuming, and we were told, and we were led to believe, and the historical documents suggest that this 24% next year makes no sense. And you may want to, you may want to take a position, and I think the county has, you'll look at it anyway. I'm sorry. I'm way ahead of myself right now. Take a look at it, please. Take a look at it. I urge you to do a public hearing. So not only the people in this room, but the people in Heritage have a chance to actually sit there and look at you in the face, everybody in the face, and say, this is what the impact's going to be. This is what we were told. And then wherever it goes from there, it'll go from there. So thanks.
And one of the big issues that I have is, especially in the homeowners, because it was anywhere from $600 to $700 more per year. And my position was on it, Bob. I'm the one that voted no on it because I think there was other things to look at. I looked into it a little bit deeper and stuff, and I think it was brought too quick, too fast, and we didn't get the information that we needed. And when it's put into that issue, I don't like that. You know what I mean? When you only got just a day or 2 days to act on it, and you don't get all the information you need. So anyway, that's one of the things, but it does impact the people that live down there, and that's the reason why I voted no on that particular item. So.
We have one more announcement here from Tim regarding the fire department, then we're going to go to John Resler next. Hold on, John.
As I think you all in this room know, we built a new training center.
Tom, would you please talk into the microphone?
I think as all of you know, the fire department built a new training center down in the business park. We are having our official grand opening on Saturday, October 28th from 10 to 2. We would like to see every one of you there. Stop by, bring the kids. We'll be having tours of the 2 burn buildings and the facility as a whole. You'll have a chance. It's also Appreciation Day for first responders. We also will have several booths there. We're going to have, I think the CSD is going to have a booth. Other organizations that do different things in the community will also have a chance to have a booth with information and stuff like that. And there will be some food. And so we'd like to have everyone turn out and get a good turnout, and hopefully we'll have great weather like we've been having and no rain. Thank you, John.
All right. Okay, Mr. Resler, are you ready? Your hand was up, John? Okay, you're speechless. John, did you have your hand up? Okay, well, we'll move along then. All right, the next item on our agenda, supervisor communications, and we've heard a little bit from supervisors tonight. You guys have one to share.
Go ahead, John. Okay.
So, John Heidel, District 1, George Turnboot, District 2, and they're going to share some information about what's going on at the county.
Well, I'm pleased to share the fact that at Tuesday's board meeting, we adopted a new strategic plan. The biggest area of discussion was with respect to the vision statement. The advisory committee had removed a couple of words that were originally there that talked about rural character and managed growth.
Yeah.
There you go. Managed growth. And so those were added back in at the request of a lot of people. because they are fundamental to the general plan, which is what the overall guidance is. But I did want to make sure, and I referenced in the general plan, the page where it talks about what constitutes managed growth. And it talks about clustered housing, and it talks about transportation analysis. So managed growth is defined in the general plan, and it's probably not consistent with what most people would like it to be, but that's what the Board of Supervisors has to operate to. So the managed growth term is the right term, but you really need to do a little bit of investigation of what's in the general plan, which was approved in 2004, to really understand what the board has to operate to. It includes things like jobs to housing ratio, and the fact that the jobs housing ratio number was way too low, and the board committed to do better with that, bringing in new businesses, new jobs, et cetera. So that was the first accomplishment we had. I also want to share with you that we were able to approve 15 vouchers for low-income housing, and these will be forthcoming in the near term. 6 of them went to an existing low-income housing facilities, and 44 for newly under construction affordable housing. Most of those are in the Placerville area. There's not any of them directly in El Dorado Hills. There's one in Cameron Park. But board's commitment with respect to housing, which is part of the general plan, is to look at ways of bringing in affordable housing, so those vouchers will help us in doing that. The other thing I think of importance is that we approved the El Dorado Hills Card Room and Restaurant in the old Santa facility. That was recommended by our sheriff after having done a thorough investigation. But I also read into the record a lot of concerns that were expressed. It was in the sheriff's memo, making sure people understood that this isn't a given. It's going to be crime-free and everything else, but we have to, give it a chance, in my opinion. We have to do the necessary oversight, and the sheriff is committed to doing that. And the way the county can stop the operation if it turns out to be not what is intended is to basically pull a business license. And so if they're not in compliance, they can pull a business license. But from my perspective, the card room, is not a plus or a minus. I'm just neutral on that, but I think a new restaurant, and particularly an upscale restaurant, which is what they promised, will be a major benefit to our community to fill that vacant space and to have that part of the community frequented more to support the businesses that are in La Borgata. So that was the other thing that was done. And then lastly, we approved a resolution of intent to go ahead and modify phase 1 of the cannabis ordinance. So we went through and picked what was referred to as the low-hanging fruit, identified the things we wanted to send back to the Planning Commission to have them review it and try to put in that first phase implementation, recognizing that we would take another 6 months for staff to go through and analyze some of the more detailed items that are in that, which are primarily CEQA-based. So that always takes time. The others are really not CEQA-driven. So we'll be a phase 2 of that as well. But we are making changes to the cannabis ordinance is what the intent is, and so that will be forthcoming. I'm thinking the first phase will probably be done the first quarter of next year. By the time it gets to the Planning Commission, I don't think it'll make it this year. There's too many other things stacked up. But, so those were the 4 items I wanted to report on, and
I'll talk about.
sure.
My items.
Sure. Yep.
Also, just, we basically had a field trip and stuff into the Caldor Fire, and we're talking about forestry restoration project, which is going on to reunify our forests, especially fire that hasn't been done for quite a while, but also Caldor Fire. And they're talking about mosquito fire too. So a lot of good information and stuff. You're talking about different plantations that they're gonna do, and they're not gonna have this no more 500 or 600 trees per acre. It'll be reduced down to about 150 to 200 trees per acre, which would be better, because the problem is when you gotta understand, one of those trees draws 10 gallons per inch per day of water. So figure a 12-inch tree, that's 120 gallons of water per day for one tree. So the problem is when we have a drought or a lack of water, those trees end up, when they're too clustered, they don't get enough water, so these trees die, and then we get bug infestation. And that's the reason, some of the things they're gonna work on to try to solve that problem. They have a new plantation, basically, and actually, the old forest genetics, they're gonna reopen that, but they're doing a lot of seedlings up at the other facility that's just a couple miles up the road. So this is a good thing, for our county, especially now, and we're still working on our biomass. I'm on the ad hoc committee for that. We're working forward with that because we have this plant that's gonna be going here pretty soon out there in that particular area. That's gonna produce 5,000 gallons per day of biodiesel to help, and plus only that, it'll help our community get rid of all that dead debris and stuff we need to bring out. One of the things that I had, a board item that I brought forward was Title 25, adopt that from Butte County. And what it is for the people in Grizzly Flat to build their own lumber, build their own houses with less restrictions. They need something. The federal government turned their backs on these people. And we gotta do everything we can in our county to help them. Now, we have 4 different plans. They could actually go in and pick a plan. It's our ADUs. The county's gonna have, all the plans are gonna be already engineered and already drawn up, so these people can go out there and pick their plans, what they want to build their house. And build their own lumber, which is gonna be a great thing for these people out there. So this is a good thing. So we brought it back. They're gonna bring it back in 45 days. And they're gonna tweak it a little bit, find out what's gonna best. This thing here they won't have to put any sprinklers or solars on these homes because they're gonna be 1,600 square foot or less. And that's like the ADUs. So anyway, this is a good start for the people out there because I'm tired of them living in RVs and trailers. We had an issue this last winter and stuff when, the only thing they have is heating these RVs with propane. So when they run out of propane, when you have 6 or 7 feet of snow, they couldn't get out of it. The roads, into their places were blocked off unless you shovel it, but a lot of them were seniors. So working with the El Dorado County Food Bank and stuff, we put it on sleds and snowshoes and we hauled this propane to these people so they'd be able to heat their facility because that's all they have to heat this place. Those motorhomes with is propane. So, and it just bothers me that our federal government turned their back on it. They didn't get any individual assistance. So we got to come up with new ideas to help these people. And it was a great thing. And I thank you, John, and the rest of the board members for voting on that particular item that I brought forward to look into it and help the people do it. That's all I have for that.
Good news.
Yeah, I'd like to say something, John. What you spoke about the strategic plan and the vision statement. I did read some of the public comments that were written into that, and I almost had to laugh at one of them. I believe it was someone from up in Pollock Pines. He says, the rural character is very important, but put all the building down in El Dorado Hills. And I just thought that was a little bit, okay, I understand what you're saying. Preserve it for the rest of the county, but put all the building down in El Dorado Hills and Cameron Park. And I almost wrote a letter in response, but I decided, nah, I'll let that one go. But I thought it was kind of amusing, so I said.
Yeah, managed growth does define what part of the county is.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Over the term of the general plan, so yeah.
So, yeah, and then, I've had conversations with some neighbors that live in a suburban neighborhood with me, wasn't there until the 90s. And they said sort of the same thing, and I was like, not that I'm jumping for joy, but back in 1996, when the general plan first came around, then was litigated, then didn't really get decided until 2004, there were a lot more rural residents than there were suburban residents, and that's changed. I think when we built the house in 95, El Dorado Hills was like 9 to 11,000, 12,000 maybe. Cameron Park was bigger. And so but then by 2000, 5 years later, we had 20,000 people in El Dorado Hills, and then we had 40,000 10 years later. Now we're at 50. So if you were to have that vote today, it might, maybe if people would pay attention, maybe they would vote for it, but there might be a different vote in sort of certifying. Yeah. So this is something to keep in mind. This is where development's going to happen. And what we do is we're looking at what's proposed and what we want for the community in terms of what's a better benefit when a project comes along. Just remind everybody, we have no authority to do that, but we appreciate the opportunity to provide our reviews and ask questions. Hey, John Reslier, your hand is up.
Yes, good evening, everyone. The system dropped me before in the area of just comments. I'm kind of at a loss. I can't come to the meetings at night because I'm not really comfortable yet driving in the evening. So I'm going to have to join these meetings using the Zoom. I would ask all of the people that are on the board who have to speak to please talk into your microphones, because the only one that I really hear clearly is John Davies. And I missed comments by our two supervisors who I'm so happy to see as being part of this meeting. I have no idea what you said. I'm sure it was, I'm going to use the word illuminating.
It was good, John.
So I can't blame you for anything. I just want to say that all of the years that I've been part of APAC, I've never come across Melrose. It's never been a question that we've ever discussed or ever talked about. It was something that people had to pay, and we really didn't know anything at all really about it. And what I'm really asking is that perhaps the supervisors can get us a speaker to come to APAC and to talk to the people in general to explain exactly how the Melrose works, how it can be increased, and what part the builder plays in determining what portion of the Melrose they want to use. Is it used only, for example, they'll ask for only a small portion of the Melrose so that people will come on board and buy their houses, and then once they buy them, all of a sudden they need more money and the Melrose will go up. I don't know, but I really and truly would like to have someone come down and talk to the people and explain exactly what the Melrose is. Just one other thing, I don't want to belabor anything. I know tonight you're going to be talking about transportation. And the other day, I'm coming down Silver Valley towards Vine Street, and I saw a family at 8:30 at night, all walking in the street on a dark road that had no sidewalk, and it just frightened me to death. And what I want to say is that in the future, when we talk about traffic and improvements to our infrastructure, we have to make sure that there are sidewalks for people who don't want to take a car. And it just frightened me to death to see a young family walking in the dark, wearing dark clothes, by the way, against traffic on Silver Valley. It's horrible. And I'll leave it at that. And I do ask everyone, if you're going to talk and you want us to hear, you will have to talk directly into that device that you have at the table. And thank you.
All right, thanks, John. I was looking at your list, sorry. I'm not opposed to having a discussion about Melrose. I think if we were informed, it would help us when we're doing analysis. Not that we would have a lot that I think that anybody that would make a decision would consider. We can offer something, but I don't know if somebody at the county is an appropriate person to do that conversation, or maybe if we have somebody in the community. We know a lot of lawyers. Maybe if somebody in the community, we could put that out and see if somebody wants to have a discussion about that. It would probably have to be on a night where we don't have a project review or something like that. We just for educational purposes, and would make us better informed when we're looking at projects. So I'm not opposed to that. I think it's something that we could pursue. So thanks for the suggestion, John. And we could carpool if you're looking for a ride at night. It's just that I get here early and I leave late. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I'll talk to you about it later. Okay, so.
Go right by there, don't you?
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to take it, John.
And I think the bigger topic is community finance districts.
Yes, CFDs.
Community finance districts. Melrose is a subset of that. So if you
Yes.
only want to know about Melrose, that's only part of it.
Yes.
If you want to know about how the fire department is pursuing a CFD, how the CSD has a CFD, if you want to understand the total package relative to taxation and CFDs. I mean, that's a much larger subject
Yeah.
than just Melrose, just so you understand that, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You're right.
okay. So moving along. I don't see any other hands up, so next, you have to listen to me, sorry, guys. Let me throw this up on the screen, and away we go. Remind everybody, if you want to become a voting member of APAC, you're already a member of APAC, because you live here in El Dorado Hills, to be a voting member, we ask that you volunteer to work on a project review or a subcommittee, and then, we help you with, to educate you about how we do it. You might have more information, there might be a better way to do it, but that's how we, and, we want anybody in the community that wants to participate, to step forward and as little as you want or as much as you want. And that's how we get members to become voting members. So moving forward, we did the supervisor communication. We have no guest speaker tonight. So we have a bunch of little updates, and we'll try to get through this relatively painlessly and quickly. There's a modification to the Superior Self-Storage Development Plan. It's a revision, and this is a project that's in Town Center West. What's the jewel case manufacturer? I always blank on it, but it's an old building that was converted for Superior Self-Storage. And when they had the original application, I want to say it's 3 or 4 years ago, to take this building and convert it to interior inside self-storage, they had always said that there will be a revision to where they wanted to add a couple more buildings. Well, now they've submitted an application for that. The expansion would be 4 buildings, about 557 storage units internally, ranging between 25 square feet and 480 square feet. And this is a look sort of on the screen, on the Zoom, you can see it. Latrobe Road's there on the right side, and White Rock Road is at the bottom. And Blue Shield is above Town Center Boulevard, which is at the top. And the El Dorado Estates, the retirement living is right behind it right now. Let me see if I move. There's a satellite view that might be a little easier to understand. Blue Shield obviously across there with all the solar panels in the parking lot. And was I able to overlay this? Yeah, so kind of. So every place there's a red dot is a new building. So this is something that they had proposed when they had their original approvals and entitlements to do this. But they still have to go through the process of getting this all approved. They discussed it and disclosed it previously. It's in its very initial stages, but we had, and we'll talk about it, I think, a little, we've talked about it before. There's another self-storage project that's primarily an outdoor self-storage, outdoor units to access from outside, and that's in the business park. And we had looked at the self-storage project, the El Dorado Hills Folsom Self-Storage at basically Sophia Parkway, Shadowfax on Green Valley Road, and they're doing their grading right now. So we've looked at these sort of projects in the past. As Tim reminds us, is that most of these self-storage projects don't have a lot of traffic impact if people take their stuff there once. Generally don't go back unless they're gonna move or they need to get something out. So when we look at these things to review them, the transportation impact, this is pretty big. The one in Town Center is pretty big, or in the business park is pretty big. When we look at the numbers and we see them, we'll take a close look at it and see if there's anything meaningful we could provide in terms of recommendations. But just to let the community know, if this moves forward, you'll see some construction there. There'll be more buildings, and it'll be much closer to White Rock Road than what they have there right now. So,
I just want to more comment again about the one in the business park, the Latrobe self-storage.
yeah,
It's more, the issues are more than just traffic, obviously.
yeah,
Environmental is a big concern. And the second concern is whether or not the conditions under which that is to be considered are consistent with the other self-storage units that are in the business park. Those are all required to be inward facing and not outdoor. And so we have, the consistency issue, and we have the environmental impact on Carson Creek. And we will be submitting, John, correct, an update to planning on our concerns on that front.
yeah. The thing on that, also, they have an RV component to store RVs there, and it looks like it's, what do they call it, an RV pavilion? I can't remember, but it is indoors. I think they have roll-up doors. Is what the renderings look like. So, but again, Carson Creek is right there, and the heritage folks have the Carson Creek Preserve. They're downstream, so people are interested. They want to know what the impacts could be and what could be, and how it could be mitigated. So we'll take a look at that when that comes along with that project.
And I think with self-storage units, quite frankly, they're ugly buildings. I mean, they can try to dress it up, but they're still ugly buildings. One of the things we were able to get with at Green Valley and Sophia was they agreed to some extra landscaping that they would be putting in to sort of break up that solid concrete block walls that go on for, hundreds of feet. So hopefully, depending on what happens with this project, we can really see if they can upgrade the landscaping requirements so they break up that solid wall.
Yeah, and it's separate buildings, so it won't be enclosed, so,
Yeah.
but again, it's part of Town Center West, and that's sort of the development entitlements they have, is those big sort of manufacturing, and so, but yeah, hopefully they'll entertain some recommendations if we have any that we think that would make the project better, so. Look, anybody who wants to work on that, stand by. So then we have just a list of some very basic project updates, and there's nothing that we're reviewing tonight. Thank you. We wanted to give an update about Summerbrook, which is now known as Oak Haven. And the applicants were here last month, and they did go before the Board of Supervisors. And what this is, it's a small project. It's 29 homes. It's on Green Valley Road, directly across the street from Pleasant Grove Middle School. In fact, the traffic light at Pleasant Grove will be the traffic light entrance now for their development, plus one other exit. APAC's been reviewing this. It was approved in 2007. They had come back 2 years ago.
3, I think, at this point.
It's been a while. So they had determined they have new owners of the project at Blue Mountain Communities, and they're doing Silver Springs across the street on Silver Springs Parkway. They bought this project and already had its entitlements, and they had talked to DOT, and DOT had informed them, hey, you have a condition of approval to install a street light, a traffic signal, not street light, traffic signal at Deer Valley and Green Valley, the entrance to Green Springs Ranch. There have already been improvements there, though, from the other project where they improved the intersection, added turn lanes, turn pockets, additional on-street bike lanes. And DOT said, hey, you have that condition of approval, but our analysis right now says we don't have a traffic warrant that would justify allowing a traffic signal there. The applicants originally had said that DOT told them it would actually make it more dangerous to put a traffic signal in. Okay, so I know Tim and I looked at this for a long time. A lot of community members made comments when the original project change had come forward a couple of years ago. And they did, based off a lot of the comments from people in Green Springs Ranch, had determined, hey, let's hold off and see what we can do here. Because it was a condition of approval, and it was, a traffic signal was $1 million to $1.5 million. And our concern was, okay, well, they're conditioned to provide this infrastructure, but now they're asking to take it away. But so now, as a community, we're losing out on $1.5 million worth of infrastructure. So we had questions. We submitted them in writing. They had some consultants come in and talk, and they're very familiar. They were here last month with us and talk about, well, hey, what's possible then? What could we do that's still an improvement in terms of infrastructure? I believe the DOT had talked about some oddball things like a right-hand turn pocket on Green Valley Road at Cameron Park Drive, which was a couple miles down the road. And I know it's something that DOT needs there, but we didn't see how this mitigates anything for this project. So the applicants, they sort of recognize it as well. We talked about maybe something for the school, because the circulation at the school is very poor now that when the road was realigned, Green Valley was expanded and Silver Springs went in, they lost a driveway. They can't use it. So we would say, well, maybe something for the school. And what they did come back with was streetlights at the intersection instead of a traffic signal. It's dark at night. It's high speed, 50 miles an hour, but reality is it's 65 to 70 miles an hour. And so they went through, and I believe their costs are not that much different than a traffic signal. But they did come back and agree to do that. DOT signed off on that. They brought it back to the Board of Supervisors to make that change in terms of the condition of approval and eliminate the traffic light. And they went with the street lights, this traffic signal went with street lights. That's tough. Language is hard. So it was approved. They did agree also to put in the infrastructure for a future traffic signal in terms of the underground, the conduits, the vaults for being able to pull wire, and it'll be more prepared to move forward with just some basic infrastructure. Yeah, essentially putting the lights up and plugging them in, and the signal timing. The vaults will be there. So they agreed to provide all that. They're going to finance the maintenance of the street lights through the HOA. So in terms of, I think Tim and I looked at it for a long time. I think we were a little more satisfied based on the fact that, okay, we're getting something and we're not losing out on $1.5 million worth of a traffic signal. They acknowledge that someday a traffic signal may be warranted, and some of that infrastructure will be, put in place by the project. So it's a compromise. It's better than not getting anything. So that was approved at the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, I think our concern originally was, you have a condition of approval, the developer knows what it is, he may have bought from another developer, but he still knows what it is. And suddenly, DOT said we don't need it anymore. So you're giving something away for free and getting nothing back. And I think, we brought this issue up, wrote some letters, had meetings, and I think it's a very good compromise. It prepares things for the future when a traffic signal may be warranted. And if growth continues in the rescue up in that area, then in the future it will be warranted. But right now, I think this is a good compromise, and it does provide some additional safety features with the lights there, because if anyone goes up on Green Valley at night, it's dark, and people do, the recommended speed limit is not followed at all. It's much higher.
Yes, and there's a school zone right after this, but I know DOT had looked into the accident history in the area. They said there were no accidents. I know for a fact there were accidents because I pulled up on them, and Highway Patrol was there. A bear got hit and killed right there a couple years ago, about 5 years ago. So in the middle of the day. So, and I know there's some sort of anecdotal, observations, same as mine. Not an official CHP report, but the folks in Green Springs Ranch, they said, yeah, my car got hit there. So I know that it's a low rate of traffic accidents, but again, it is very dark, and you have a new community there at the next stoplight. You have the Green Springs Ranch across the street, and then Deer Valley, the western end of Deer Valley dumps out right there. So, and there's potentially more development coming. So it's a good compromise, I think, is what we mentioned. So we're glad that they agreed to listen to us and to, I'm not drawing that, by the way. We're glad that our concerns were heard and that we were able to have a dialogue with the development team. So,
And the good news is the development infrastructure is being done without a surprise to the future or the current homeowners
there you
there.
go.
In taxes they didn't expect to have to pay for.
Yeah, they did some other things too. There's a property owner back there. Technically, it's rescue on that side of the road. This property owner back there has had a gun range on his property for, it's a 10-acre property, been there for years. He had asked planning back in 2007 to make sure there were disclosures to new residents that were buying these properties. And I believe it wasn't a condition of approval, but it's in the notes from the Planning Commission. Yes, we'll provide disclosure. The new property owner had no idea that was it. So they went and met with him on his property. He walked him around, and they're working with him to make sure that everybody who has property here is going to have it disclosed to them that the longtime resident has a shooting range on his property. So
And uses it.
and uses it. It is, when we talk about the rural suburban interface, this is it now. So and it's creeping further east. So, and again, we talked about that's primarily the location of the traffic signal. And then that's the actual intersection itself. The next item was the Sienna Ridge Quick Car Wash, which is behind the Safeway, proposed for behind the Safeway. It's a conditional use permit, and they have to do a plan development for the project. Our concern was sound. Car washes are noisy, especially the automated ones. And so actually, the applicant had talked to Supervisor Heidel's office, and Cindy went ahead and put them in touch with us. We had submitted comments about the sound. They provided the sound study and analysis that revealed that with the existing supermarket there at the Sienna Ridge Shopping Center, and it's Sienna Ridge, Bass Lake Road, Toronto Parkway, that, I guess there's pictures, that probably helps. That the way they measured it out, there would be barely, not even a 1 decibel increase over what's existing. The back of the Rayleigh's Safeway Shopping Center, their loading docks are there. There's a lot of noise. And it's hard to believe, 1 decibel increase in sound, and the houses are less than 200 feet away there from the red area. So I did talk to someone from Quick spent a lot of time with me going over it. They went ahead and the way they've designed it, they had a lot of architectural design elements that had to go through Serrano's review because it has to be consistent with the look and feel of Serrano. So stacked stone walls and all that good stuff. But they have custom baffles they've made for the air drain equipment, which is the noisiest part of their operation. Those will be installed, that they're not installed at other sites. And also they have a drying room. When you come out of the tunnel, it's insulated and baffled to reduce sound even more. And it's pointed directly south, which will be a future school site, but it's pointed directly south to minimize the impact on the neighbors here in Serrano Village 6, J6, and for the Bass Lake North, the hidden ridge that's being developed right now. So they were supposed to be at the Planning Commission in September, which they wanted to come and talk to us, but they would have been at the Planning Commission. That meeting got canceled for the Planning Commission. They've been rescheduled for November 9th, and he said that if anybody had any questions, I can put you in touch with them. There were a couple residents, I live in the Bass Lake area. I talked to about 6 residents right away when this was announced in the Business Journal. And consequently, the 2 that were the most upset have sold their homes and moved. So I couldn't get anybody to come back with more feedback for him. And then the other 4 people never answered my email. So we did what we could. So, but that'll be at the Planning Commission. It's conditional use permit. They have one that they're putting in Cameron Park. They have one that's putting in Placerville. The one that they proposed for across the street from, the Purple Place, in the Sophia retail neighborhood development that's under discussion, they don't think they're moving forward with that at this time. So that's your update for all things car wash. So, but we appreciated the amount of outreach they did with us. So this is another one, and I talked to Kirk Bone a couple times today, mostly through text because I was on phone calls. It's an update, the El Dorado Hills specific plan from 1988. Mostly it's the Village Green, where the Park and Development Building is, the library's at, the pond, lake. This is zoned for commercial. It's supposed to be commercial buildings. El Dorado County has changed the zoning ordinance several years ago for community commercial zone properties that mixed use is an entitled right for those things. The specific plan, however, doesn't have that in the language. So they've gone to the county and have asked, we want to update the specific plan so that it matches the county ordinance in place now. They also have to update the plan development document from 1995 as well. So I saw this a while ago. They applied for this back in July. I heard from about 3 or 4 people and right when we were getting ready to put our agenda out. So I thought, well, I guess we're talking about this. They're not in a position right now where they're really moving forward with it. Kirk told me today he thinks they might have something by next month and they're willing to come and talk about what they're looking at here. There is nothing designed or planned in terms of mixed use, obviously is housing, apartments, townhomes, whatever it may be, but they're still considering commercial uses for it because they're marketing for sale for development there. They have 3 items that they're working on that are submitted and track it: the specific plan mixed use revision, the plan development from 95, the permit for building commercial there. They want to add the mixed use onto the permit, which is consistent with the zoning ordinance. And also they have a traffic study that they have a work order in for that, do the analysis of what the possible traffic impacts may be. So we're happy to hear from Serrano Associates Parker Development. Kirk said he and Andrea would probably come next month if they're ready, but they're really waiting to hear back from the county. The county suggested some changes to the language in their application, so it's consistent with the zoning ordinance. So I don't know, do I have anything else on this? Well, there's the overlay of what it could look like with the commercial with no mixed use. It's on the APAC website if you're dying to go look at it. And that's sort of the overlay of where it would sit on the property. Not much in the way of changes in terms of the driveway would still be the same driveway to the covered bridge over to the library from the Serrano Parkway. And this is just what they've submitted, what was considered when it was first approved back in the late 80s and then again 95 for the permit. Things like a sheriff's substation, a fire station, post office, library, which we have now. the retail and commercial, cafe, delicatessen, bakery, childcare, which there is a childcare there, if I'm remembering correctly. Small, I think. There are 2 dental offices in there. So, yes, small professional service offices, real estate offices, hair salon. I thought it was like a daycare.
There may be.
I'm gonna have to go stop their parking lot to remember. And then things that they said were prohibited back then were a major grocery store with over 15,000 square feet, super drugstore, and aren't they all super? Home improvement material like a hardware department store, franchise fast food, or a service station. The one thing at the green arrow at the bottom, that's what they want to modify. Residential development may occur within the village green is contemplated by the county's zoning ordinance section, and they cite the section that's in place now, mixed use development, or an approved plan development permit. So that's what they're submitting. They're going to work with the county to get it lined up, and then Kirk and Andrew will probably come and talk to us about it to let us know what that's going to look like, what might be possible. They could get this permitted for mixed use and still put in nothing but office buildings. So, but they did want to match what was in place with the zoning ordinance. So, and since people had asked, and well, I guess we're going to have to talk about it. So we talked about it. And then again, it's just the language in their letter. They do not have any specific development plans at this time. They're just seeking from a programmatic perspective to bring their specific plan into alignment with the county's community commercial zone district as it relates to the mixed use development. So no detailed plans, buildings, nothing. They just want to make sure that they had changed the language of the specific plan to match. So unless there's any questions about that. Any hands up? Oh, there's a hand up, sorry. 2 screens, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, Ron and Carol, you have a hand up? Let me see if I can get to you. There it goes. You should be able to unmute.
There we go.
Perfect.
Hi.
Hello there.
From this end, my voice sounds terrible. Can you hear me all right on your end? And I'll just start into my question.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
That's great. Okay. I wanted to talk about the Quick Quack car wash briefly. And that is just, I can disagree with it or agree with it, but I would urge you all to make sure everyone who's involved understands the issue of the sound. I spent 5 years in the audio industry back when rock and roll was king. And I will tell you something, I spent a lot of time learning about and understanding sound pressure measurements. Right now in El Dorado Hills, and I do live in Sienna Ridge, so we're in the affected area, we have a nice, quiet neighborhood. We've got the open space with Bass Lake behind us. And I can tell you right now that the ambient sound pressure level at our backyard is under 38 decibels, which is well below a whisper phase. So first of all, sound pressure levels are very, very dynamic. So when you say that somebody from this acoustics organization tells you that it would not even be a 1 decibel increase in sound pressure level, I have to tell you that realistically, 1 decibel of sound pressure level is what you would call in the noise level. You cannot even measure 1 decibel of difference and have it be statistically meaningful, because with any other ambient noise going by, it's going to change. I think the question that needs to be asked is, what is the baseline sound pressure level in the areas, in numerous areas around Sienna Ridge and the existing area by the supermarket? And what is going to be an acceptable level of increase in ambient noise from those vacuums, especially if Quick Quack is allowed to remain open until 9 o'clock at night? I can assure you those vacuums will not create 1 decibel in noise. They could very easily double it for a specific distance. And that's a whole other thing about acoustics. Sound pressure reduces as the inverse square of the sound pressure and all that. I won't get into that here. It's going to be different in different places, but I think you should make sure it's clear with the residents what the accepted baseline is now, and you can measure that with an online app. Just walk around and you can tell right now what the ambient sound pressure level is in the neighborhood, and then have these people tell you and go 2 existing quick quack car washes. There got to be several around, and go measure the sound pressure level in the vicinity of those shops. And I think it will give you a good idea of what a true increase in sound pressure level will be, because whether there are trees in the neighborhood or whatnot, if you're standing 50 to 100 yards away, you can get a realistic measure on sound pressure at an existing quick quack and then superimpose it onto the sound pressure going on here, and get a realistic understanding both for yourselves and for the residents as what's really going to happen. I mean, a quick quack maybe isn't the worst thing we could have put here, but I will just say, speaking as one resident, I will tell you that I would be against it because, first of all, I'd be against it because it's a car wash. Second of all, they're not being honest with you about how they're going to be measuring the sound if this is what they're telling you. And I urge you and encourage you to pursue this to the full extent that you can.
Well, hopefully, this is Tim White. Hopefully, maybe you could provide some assistance on that, because I guarantee you know more about sound than anyone else in this room or on the APAC board. And, as you live up in Sienna Ridge and will be more affected by it, if you could volunteer some time to take a look at that and provide your expertise, because you've got far more expertise than any of us have at this point in time.
I'd be happy to do that. And if I presume, because you have our names, you have our login information or email, you do have contact information, right?
We don't see it from, well, if you get notice from our APAC agenda when it goes out, then we have your email on that list.
Right. Okay.
Several hundreds and hundreds of people, but
okay.
Our email address is on the website, and our individual email addresses are on the agenda. If you want to send me a note to remind me, I'm in the Bass Lake area, so I'm pretty close.
And your name again is?
I'm John Davey.
Got it.
And then, like I said, I talked to the fellow from Quick Quack. They sent us the sound analysis right away. It's also posted on the website. If you look under projects under review, I think it's listed there. Or you could just do this search feature for Quick Quack.
I actually haven't. I've actually been on the phone. Now that I remember, I've actually been on the phone with Quick Quack Corporate, trying to get a little bit of information. I know I talked to one person. I think I got pretty much the same information that you did, but.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. It's like when we look at the sound analysis, it's like traffic analysis. We're looking at a report that seems to be by a reputable company.
Sure.
I looked at that number when it said less than 1 decibel, and I went, huh?
Yeah.
But I guess magic and voodoo work in strange ways. But I think their measurement, I think the max measurement was 58 decibels existing, and they're saying that it would just be just under 1 additional decibel.
Yeah.
But again,
I'm
looking at this on a paper. I don't know if that's accurate, if that's real. But we try to work in good faith, right? That they're submitting real things to us. So.
Sure. Yeah. So let's just say that I will be in touch with you by the end of the day tomorrow. No later than with the information so that you can reach out to me, and I'd be happy to volunteer. Yes.
Yeah. And then also, and we also remind APAC members, you can make your own comments. When we submit comments, typically it's by a subcommittee, or our voting members vote. So yes, those are the comments that we're recommending and authorizing by a vote. But even if you work on a project, you're still entitled to make your own comments. And I think that additional comments to the Planning Commission, but at least have them look a little closer. That's considering your experience. It might help them in their analysis as well.
And one thing you might consider, quite frankly, is a condition of approval. Maybe you'd mentioned it was going to run to 9 o'clock at night. Maybe a condition of approval for this, that it shuts down at 7 o'clock at night, so that the nighttime noise level, particularly in the summer when people might be in their backyard, they won't hear this, whatever noise would be coming from the car.
Well, I can hear soccer games on the west side of Bass Lake, and I'm well on the east side of Bass Lake. So, and the topography comes into play too, because you're uphill from it as well. So, and there are neighbors across to the west. So again, I didn't hear from any of them, but I did hear from a few neighbors inside of J6. And anecdotally, I cannot talk tonight. The original plan for Serrano, this was a retail village. It was J5 and J6. They revised this in 2017, 18, there were supposed to be 2 shopping centers here. So basically where the houses are that are going to have the impact, that's supposed to be a second shopping center. And the number one thing we listed way back in 1990 something was a car wash. So I know that they've talked about it for a long time. I don't think anybody actually expected that to happen, but you raised some very valid points and concerns, and I think it's important that, you know, we take a look at it and that we communicate with the applicant and with the planning commission, you know, what we're hearing, seeing, and thinking, and hopefully we get good mitigation in place.
Wonderful. And yes, and you could also have them investigate some sort of muffler that could be applied to the vacuum motor itself to quiet it. If you want to talk about noise abatement, that would be critical.
They said that the loudest part of the vacuum system, it's a blower, is the inlet, not the outlet. And so they have custom baffles. And there are pictures of them on the, we have them on the APAC website in their sound analysis.
Okay.
And yeah, you're right. The one in Folsom, if you want to listen to a quick quack, if you're ever shopping at Green Acres on the hill and they're running down there below you, it's like a jet engine. So, but they assure me that this is something that they have not put in any place else because it hasn't been required. But they definitely want to be in business, and they have a subscription model, so they don't want angry neighbors. So hopefully, right, we have a good discussion and they can mitigate to a point that's more acceptable to neighbors. I don't think we'll get everyone 100% satisfied, but you raise good points.
And I actually have one more, if I could bring it up. I'm sorry to hog the meeting a little bit. The other thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is lighting. One of the things that I have is an interest in astronomy, and El Dorado Hill should be recognized for the fact that it's what I like to refer to as a dark sky community because of the street lights and the way they point, the residential lights. It's quite dark, which is wonderful. But aside from that, the question I have regarding the Quick Quack car wash is, are they going to be expected to have lighting similar to what's existent already in the shopping center near the Safeway and the Barkin, the pet shop thing on the other side? Is it going to be similar to that, or are they expecting that because this is going to be an active patron area next to an active driveway, that they're going to want to increase the lighting, and how would that affect the neighborhood and the beautiful dark skies that we have? Or are they going to be limited to what the existing lighting is?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't see a lighting plan in the application, so I'm wondering if maybe they're going to use what's there, but they are going to have some illuminated signs, so we know that'll be there. I believe they have a sign package that they've submitted. So another thing for us to take a look at, and hopefully before, November, what's the date? November 9th. So we'll get cracking. Well, thank you, Ron.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you now.
Okay, so we went through that. Generation in Green Valley. So this is the old Dixon Ranch project, which I think was 600 homes? 700? I get it wrong, plus the one that's already there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so 700. It was rejected by the Board of Supervisors in 2017, based primarily, I believe, on the financial analysis that there would be a financial impact to the county. The county would end up accruing some expenses based off of the project, and the auditor controller provide that sort of last minute, I would say, but at least we got it in front of the board and they recognized it and they did vote to deny the project back then. Immediately after that, I'd say within about 2 months, we have the applicant come to an APAC meeting and say, this is the first project we've ever had denied. They're going to go back and work on it. I think we talked to them in 2019. We sat down with them and they said, well, here, we're working on this project, and they do have an application in. And I keep hearing, I think I've heard at the fire department, I think I've heard from planners that it's imminent in terms of like a notice preparation, that there'll be, the environmental review documents to be prepared, scoping meeting, that sort of thing. But I have not heard back from the applicant, but everybody keeps saying it's coming. So we wanted to remind people here tonight. What they've done is they've modified the plan to, instead of the 700 homes, and they had a big senior focus in terms of having houses constructed that you can grow old in terms of wider doors and bathrooms that are accessible. And believe me, you don't think about that until you have somebody that needs to use it with a wheelchair, a walker, any of those type of things. So that they talked about that before. They're still talking about that to a degree here. They're talking about now 379 single family residential lots, one park. I think they're outside the CST district boundary there. Maybe they aren't. So they'd have to be annexed in if the CSD is going to operate that park. Maybe it'll be a private park, we don't know. Clubhouse, 9 open space lots, 13 landscape lots, and then 3 lots for the roads that will serve the facility. And what they've done here is that instead of having the very high density development that goes out and touches the adjoining residential estate 10-acre lots, is that they're making their outside lots more compatible, like 3-5 acres, as a sort of a buffer to transition to the existing residential lots, which is a thoughtful way to approach it, but I don't know it's going to satisfy people who live immediately next to it. And so this is the area. It's on Green Valley Road. It's west of Deer Valley and basically just east of Malcolm Dixon. Sorry, why I'm struggling tonight. We have friends that live there too, and I can't remember the name of the road. This is, I think, a better look at what we're talking about here. That's an overlay of what the project would look like. It would come up to the west towards Highland Hills. I believe there's still a road proposed to connect into Highland Hills. Is that not a full road what they're proposed?
Fire
Okay.
access road.
Because the other one was, the original project had a connection. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, well then,
with a smaller community proposed, they don't.
Yeah.
Not a requirement of it.
so there you go. So then you can see sort of at the bottom of the white overlay here, those are large lots that are more compatible with the existing large lot residential units and properties that are around it. They're not going to do large lots to the west because there's an existing sort of medium to high density development to the west, Highland Hills. And that's how they propose to buffer the impact. Now, I believe that our discussion with them was that, you know, they're prepared even with a smaller project. Gosh, that was 2018, 19. They said that at that time, they would still want to do the road improvements for the larger project that apply it to the smaller. Whether that's part of the plan now, I don't know. Things are 10 times more expensive than they were even just, 5 or 6 years ago. So this is what they're talking about. And so this is a big project. We don't know how fast or how slow it will go. I imagine with the environmental review, it'll be many months, a year to a year and a half. But we probably would be looking for people to work on the review for this soon, because it'll be coming up. And that NOP, when it comes out, the scoping meeting, that's just sort of a first look. And we can provide some comments then. The real work comes when we see the draft EIR and when we have discussions with the developer. You can hear what he's heard at the scoping meeting, and then have discussions with APAC audience, APAC members, and say, well, here, perhaps we could do this, or we could recommend something, and they can tell us, you're out of your mind, or they could say, hey, maybe there's something there that we could accommodate. So we will be looking for somebody to look at this. Do you know anything else? I haven't heard from Aiden.
Not
in a while.
Adrian.
Aiden Berry.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think the current development, the new proposed one, does reflect the fact that the Generations developer did listen to the community. There were really 2 main issues. One was the surrounding 10-acre sites, and those people were already there. They really didn't like the idea of having a bunch of homes right back on the other side of their fence, because they have goats and horses and other things, and that was going to affect their ability. And of course, the new people would probably not like the idea of all the horse flies and everything else that might be there. So they did expand the size of those buffer from 1 acre or acre and a half to 3 to 5 acres, so that there's more of a buffer there. And obviously, someone who buys next to horses or something is going to know that they're there.
yeah.
The other issue, of course, is the traffic lights and the access off Green Valley. Now, Green Valley, it's 1 lane in each direction there. And the big issue last time was what the developer was proposing or not proposing to put in terms of traffic lights. So it'll be interesting to see with the smaller size development, what the new traffic impact and traffic studies reveal, and what modifications will be made so that it's not a complete traffic jam if you have people coming and going. Now, originally they did propose of having a shuttle service, take the senior part so that they could take seniors to the grocery store and pharmacy and doctor's appointments. So that would keep those fewer cars on the road. But we'll see if that's still part of the proposal.
Yeah, and the odd thing about this is that we talked earlier about, well, it's Oak Haven now, but the Summerbrook Oak Haven project, the determination that they didn't need the traffic signal came from an analysis of traffic for this project at the very end as it was being denied. Is what DOT said. It was that time frame. They looked at it again afterwards and said, oh, well, we don't need a traffic signal now. So these things are interconnected. You know, you make a change someplace, and upstream, downstream, there are impacts. So that's, you know, we might not catch them all when we're looking at them. That's why we ask for volunteers to come and look, because you might see something we don't. So we appreciate anything that somebody will contribute in terms of analysis. So when this comes up, though, it's a big project. We'll want some help looking at it. So keep in the back of your mind. We'll take names now, but and then this is sort of the look at what it's proposed for now. The large lots to the south along the bottom and along the northwest. So, oh, yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I'm Pat Chris. I have a question. Is there a 2-access entrance egress from this place? How can they build a 700-unit subdivision with only one
If I go back
entrance
and
and
look.
exit?
I believe I thought there were two.
There were 2, but now it's 379 lots, not 700.
That's still 379 houses.
I imagine the fire department will have something to say about that.
They normally,
Fire
because that's
department?
really critical.
Yeah,
I lived on Ridgeview for 40 years or 30 some years, and there was only one entrance, one exit. And for fire, it's really dangerous. I don't know how they can build these bigger subdivisions and not have at least 2 entrances
if not three, yeah.
and exits.
And then obviously well, they'll have the EVA if there's if there's an emergency, that's very small. But yeah, as an example, where I'm at, they started building there in 94. I think they finished by 97. It's 278 houses. Until the second phase of another development came in, we had one access point as well. Bridlewood Canyon had an EVA road but their struggle right now to get on the Bass Lake Road, getting out in front of the lake. Their EVA road is gone now because the Serrano development went into the J7 project. So they're back to one entrance as well. It is a concern. I think it's a concern for the emergency access, but also just for circulation overall, right? Are we making things worse, or is there an impact? And obviously, they're probably.
One of the things that have been in discussion, is still in discussion, is a routing that would take you out the Bass Lake Road from the back end of that project, which would have to work with the CSD, but that would make a whole lot of sense from the standpoint of being able to get out of that community. If a fire's coming from the east, you go to the west. If the fire's coming from the west, you go to the east. So, and with the EVA, you've got 3 areas now that you could evacuate that area. But I'm not sure that's part of their plan. But there had been discussions with the Community Services District about would they be willing to work with the developer to try to identify where that routing might be.
Well, I'm just saying this because times have changed. Times have changed. And what we used to do is no longer acceptable. And we have to be more aware and stricter about what access is really suitable for these kinds of subdivisions.
Yeah, and the fire department does a pretty good job. We were fortunate enough to sit into a few scoping meetings during COVID when everything was virtual. We got the invites accidentally. The scoping meetings are supposed to be between the agencies, different departments of the county, outside the county, CHP. But the fire department was always right away saying, hey, you know what? We can't turn our fire engine around in there. It's a problem. If we can't get close to a building, it's a problem. And they would go through and measure, hey, that road's not going to work. Our equipment can't get in through there. Or we can get one piece in, but we can't get, if we need 2, you got to make changes to a project. So,
Or the fire department can't get in and people
Can't
go
get
out at
out.
the same time. And because most of the time fire departments are trying to get in and people are evacuating. And there are some developments down off the Latrobe that, they want to subdivide their 40 acres and they don't want to build 24 feet wide roads in and out. They say, oh no, 12, 16 foot's enough. We're going, that's a big safety issue from the fire side.
So if you're willing to work on a review of this, we'll entertain any.
Let me mention as well that the California CEQA laws changed to look at fire safety as one of the provisions now. So local agencies are required to do a much more thorough analysis than what was required as of 3 years ago. So times are changing.
For the better, we hope.
Yes.
So
Sometimes.
we try, right? Just an update on the Costco EDH 52. There's been nothing yet. We're expecting that there will probably be a new NOP and another scoping meeting to look at the changes that are proposed on the EDH 52 side of this project. Costco remains pretty much static, or at least it is, because they haven't told us anything different yet, but we have not heard from them in a while either. And we talked about it. So there's no fuel station proposed for the Costco, which will be on they call it the southern site. It's a western site. And the eastern site, which they call the northern site, had been proposed for all sort of retail commercial, and it's zoned for big box. So they were looking to rezone that part of it to community commercial to serve the area. They had some self-storage projects proposed in there, but they had no tenants assigned yet. They just were sort of doing it on speculation. They've come back now and they're saying that they want to do 304 multifamily units, 14,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial uses in 2 buildings. So, and then this is how they put it on. This is not north and south on a map, but this is how they presented it in their application. The north side would be the mixed use. It's apartments and some commercial. And the south side would be Costco. When you really look at a map, it looks like this, west and east. The thing about Costco, and I know I've had a lot of people talk, I really try not to next door, but a lot of like neighbors, a lot of people, when you go out with me, you talk to your friends, you talk to neighbors, and they're like, hey, what's wrong with that Costco? It's like, well, it's the project is still the project. We're waiting to hear. The environmental review will probably be underway soon-ish. But when we talked to Costco, I sat in on the scoping meetings representing the Bass Lake area, but also APAC. But a lot of people say, hey, they don't have any stores that are within 3 miles of each other. They have a lot of stores within 3 miles of each other. Not a lot in California, but they do in San Diego. I think Fresno is almost 3 miles. In Fresno, it's a growing place too. But so it is odd that they would be that close together along the same freeway, but it is, as the crow flies, they have a lot of stores like this. There's no fuel station, and that they changed that partly due just because of the topography of the land, but also because folks nearby had raised a lot of concerns about it being so close to the elementary school. And so I think they recognized that those were concerns and said, well, we won't do a fuel station. And a lot of people now are upset because that's what the part of the project people were looking forward to is when we're filling up with our $6 gas, if you get a nickel or a dime off, 50 cents. But so fuel station's out of the picture for right now. And then a lot of people in Cameron Park, Flashville, they're complaining that it's not going there. Well, there are 50,000 people here. Costco is a membership store. They know where their members are. And their members are not in Flashville or Cameron Park in the density that would justify them opening a store. They've said point blank they have no interest in any other projects right in El Dorado County. And the primary reason is that Silver Valley Parkway at Highway 50 is freeway access that they want. It's a Class A intersection. They won't have to improve it. The Cameron Park Drive interchange, that's like a $50, $70 million project. And we have no money to do it. There's no development Cameron Park that's going to pay for that. It's got to be impact fees over time. By the time we get $50, $70 million to do it, it's probably $150 million to do it. So
Same thing with Missouri Flat.
Missouri Flat's the same. Well, they have a financing mechanism in place, but even that is their sales tax from Missouri Flat still sort of trails what they had projected. But they are doing something. But so they have no interest in any other site. Placerville's too small. They don't have any highway access there. Cameron Park, population too small, no highway access. Shingle Springs, some people had asked for that. I can't imagine a lot of people in Shingle Springs be excited about that, but again, the population's too small. There's no highway access that would work with what they intend to build. Bass Lake Road, it's not zoned for it and has no highway access either. That interchange has to be improved, and that's another high dollar project that, the money's not there right now. A lot of people ask about the business park. Again, they want to be close to the highway. They don't want to be too far away from it. They want to improve an off-ramp, on-ramp interchange. They just feel it's too remote, and there's nothing there that's zoned for the use. This right now is zoned for big box. So that's where they're at. And again, this is a look at what they talked about for the residential side that they're proposing, the mixed use, 304 apartment units, studio, 3-bedroom, 4 stores. The first floor will be garages that are underneath the buildings, 9,500 square foot clubhouse, 14,000 square feet of retail space in 2 buildings at the corner of what will be Country Club Drive and Silver Valley Parkway. And they've talked about, like I said, the clubhouse will have a pool and the typical things you'd have in terms of amenity. So I think it's a little closer. I think this is the closest look. The thing that we had talked about a lot when they were here, we've heard from the community, is that, the impact of the to Oak Meadow Elementary is that it's difficult in and out of that school right now. There's no traffic signal at the entrance. The design drawing they have here, which shows Country Club is being extended and it wraps around from the east to the north and comes out at a proposed intersection, with a traffic signal. They show multiple lanes, I think 2 lefts, 1 straight, 1 right, westbound. They show that there's an access road going towards the elementary school. So there might be some improvement there that may be offset. It's still going to be an impact. The one thing that I would point out with this is that they're still proposing a traffic signal right in the middle of their project at Silver Valley, close to the highway. And DOT has said that's a non-starter. They can't have that.
Right in, right out.
Yeah, but they still are proposing it. And I know I think I was with Raphael when we were saying goodbye to John at the Planning Commission, and he said, "Hey, have you seen this?" Like, "Yeah, I've seen it." I said, "It still shows 2 traffic signals." He goes, "No." So they'll work through it, right? And we'll learn more about it. I anticipate we'll be hearing something about some sort of public scoping meeting, environmental review documents being prepared, and we'll have a chance to chime in again.
We're looking for a scoping meeting and notice of preparation of the CEQA document. That's be a full EIR. I mean, this is going to take them probably more than a year to get through all those cycles before anything else can happen. But I do want to mention that DOT and my office and John Vania met with the school and discussed what we could do to provide a flow-through parking area, drop-off area for students and stuff. And there's actually a layout on the other side. It's not part of this project. It's on the other side of the street. But it also involves property that Bill Parker owns.
Yeah.
We've approached them. They said, well, come back and talk to us when you're serious. So they're open to it, but there's no agreement yet.
Yeah.
But that would substantially improve the circulation and the parking associated with Oak Meadow School, which was never designed right.
Yeah, well, none of the schools on Silver Valley Park are designed correctly, but we don't have much input on school design because it's a state level. And you have local school boards and offices of education, but the state decides on that sort of thing. Again, there was a scoping meeting that was virtual because it was right in the middle of COVID. I think it served the community poorly. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was just people saying what they thought. And again, a scoping meeting is about the environmental aspects of a project. So a lot of people were commenting, I don't like this project. You have to talk about the environmental aspects, because that gets them off on their first look at what people are concerned about in terms of the environmental review, and then they add it to the list of things that they have to look at. So we're hoping that we can engage with them and have more dialogue as this moves forward, and that when it's announced what's going to happen, and I imagine it'll be virtual in some fashion. It'll probably be here. Maybe it'll be at the school. I don't know. But when they do it, we'll share it on our website and on all our social media. And then I do see, John, your hand is up and you've been very patient. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question on this project on the north side, or the east, really the east side. And my understanding is it's, I think, commercial regional currently, and the applicant's looking to downzone to community commercial. I think those are the designations. And it looks like the applicant's doing that in order to grab hold of the mixed use designation
Yeah.
that's contained in the down zone. And my question there, and this maybe John or George can address this from a county perspective, what is the meaning of mixed use? Because when I look at this, what I'm seeing is 95% apartments and 5% retail. And that sounds more like an apartment complex to me. I've done mixed use. Typically what we do is the first floor is retail or commercial, and then you put housing above that. The idea of mixed use is typically to reduce traffic, that residents can use the retail and commercial at the facility. So I'm kind of wanting to get an idea of how the county views mixed use. What does that mean?
We have a very outdated mixed-use manual that describes things, and we're in the process of trying to get that updated. But I think the simpler answer is this is proposed at all 52 acres, both sides, the warehouse,
Yeah.
which is the commercial side, and the apartments and the retail center, which is a mix. And I think when you look at all 52 acres, it does meet the criteria of our current mixed-use eligibility.
But you're not downzoning the other side.
Understand, and that's the part I don't understand, how it can't all have to be, why it all doesn't have to be down zone. So we haven't had that detailed discussion. It's been proposed. The planning department's reviewing it, and I've not had any detailed out briefs or anything else in terms of what does it mean when they came back with the apartments as their proposal as opposed to storage and the bigger retail center. So I just don't know at this point.
So volunteering John to work on this committee, like I volunteered
go.
to work on other committees. The one thing I did notice is our mixed use is a relatively new zoning, part of the zoning ordinance in terms of it wasn't contemplated back in 1988, 1995. It was more about the time that after Town Center was approved in 95 that we started talking about it. And as John described, a lot of typical mixed use is it's in a more of a urban environment where you have ground floor commercial and retail, and then you have the upper floor would be residential. So a little different in the county, and we don't have a lot of it. So, but
Yeah, I'm a fan of mixed use. It's just this doesn't look very mixed use to me. I guess that's my concern.
Letter of the law, spirit of the law. So it's somewhere in there. We got to find some balance. But I would also say, we've already seen it with several other projects, well, a few other projects. This is what's coming to our county, even though maybe it won't be coming that far east. But certainly, the Roseville Galleria, they're looking at putting housing in the Galleria. In the mall there, Sunrise Mall is looking at converting to not a lifestyle center, but they're a town center where they're going to have a lot of housing, a lot of apartments, townhomes, and some retail and commercial. So this is looking, I think there's financing available for projects like this, which is probably why, when we look at, when we talked about, there's a pre-application for Montana de El Dorado, the phase 2, which was approved, and now the grocery that they had planned on, the hotel they had planned on, a lot of those retail elements, there's not a demand for anymore, which is why he's looking to see if it's possible to go to mixed use there, which is, I think, 330 apartment units there. This is what is coming, because this is what people can get financing for, and this is what sort of, I don't want to say El Dorado County, but a lot of governments plan on this sort of implementation of, because the state's saying we need the housing. Whether we need that much here or not, question, we're now a community of 50,000 people. We need something. We need a variety of housing. My kids aren't going to live here.
Right. I'm just wondering, it seems to me it would be more appropriate to just zone it multifamily then. To go
I know.
I feel like it's a little bit of a pretend zoning designation. I'd rather see it be a little more upfront.
I know in the car dealer business, they say if you don't give no show, you don't get no dough. So, it might be just a matter of labeling it to, provide some ease of acceptance as we move through. But again, we're going to be looking at it. I know a lot of residents in Serrano, or many residents that said they'd rather see more residential there than commercial use if it's something that's going to be built. A lot of people say they want it to be a park. Well, it's not zoned right now for residential. Might end up being partially residential, but it's not going to be a park. So, you know, what's being proposed and how do we mitigate? What's the best result we can get for the community based on what's proposed? Those are the things that we look at and we make recommendations. So,
Yep.
yeah. So again, we'll look forward to. I know a lot of people are very eager to look at this project. So we'll appreciate any help that the community provides. So what did we look?
I looked it up and the El Dorado County Mixed Use Design Manual was approved in December of 2015. So it's been out there for several years, but it hasn't been used in a number of applications. Placer County just did a very thorough one.
Yes.
Which I referred to our planning department as saying, why can't we adopt a very similar manual and be well-defined in terms of what constitutes mixed use? And that was about 4 months ago. So I don't know if we're going to get there or not, but anyway.
There's a few things.
Takes a while.
There's a few things in the air. So yeah.
Right.
So, all right. Well, thank you, John, for sharing that and reminding us. So the last, we have two other things we'll throw out at the end, just because I want to keep everybody here later. The Central Dorado Hills specific plan, and Supervisor Heidel has been sharing, you know, at our community council meetings that, you know, there's a development agreement team that's working at the county with the applicant. And I've been trying to remind people, so when this project was at the planning commission, they don't decide on general plan amendments. They don't decide on specific plan amendments. They, you know, there's a lot of things here that they're advisory to the board of supervisors. So they cast their die. Their consensus was about the same as ours in terms of where we found the project lacking or had concerns. And they voted 5-0 to recommend denying the project, but they still have the mechanism in front of them, the decisions at the board of supervisors. So they've been efforting for over a year and working on changes to the development agreement. As far as that's all we know. When it comes back, John has shared that he's trying to see where we could have a big meeting like we did for the planning commission, where we did it at district church, about 500 people there. We were all elbow to elbow. To have a meeting in El Dorado Hills because.
So I can update you on that. We're working with Holy Trinity Church,
Okay.
which has a capacity for well over 600.
Okay.
And the Zoom and everything else. And right now we're looking at January as the earliest realistic timeframe according to planning. There's just more work to be done. And so it's going to push out to the first part of next year. But we've been working with the church to make sure we
Yeah.
get dates defined so that we will be able to hold that
It won't
meeting.
be on a Sunday.
Hopefully in El
Yeah.
Dorado Hills.
Yeah.
No, it won't be on Sunday. We
No.
want to be in competition. It'll be sometime on a weekday,
Yeah.
not Friday.
That's right. That's right. So, but anyways, we've talked about it. So I don't want to talk about it anymore, but this is the project. You know, it had been proposed for 1,000 dwelling units. I think right now it's coming a little bit lower. There's many aspects to this. And again, I think we described here, since that planning commission determination for the recommendation, have been focused on modifying the draft development agreement. No changes have been announced publicly. When they're made, we'll all hear about it. It'll be on the agenda in Legistar. We'll get a delicious meeting, hopefully at Holy Trinity Church. And I would encourage everybody to, you know, when you make comments, we all got upset about proposed developments or parts of things that, you know, we don't like, and it gets everybody going, but you gotta present your concerns in a thoughtful manner, or else you get tuned out, which is why when we do our reviews, we try to be respectful of the fact that they have they own the property, they have every right to propose this and see if it can get approved. I know a lot of people classify things as villains and heroes, and, hey, they own the property, we live here, we'll provide our comments, they'll provide what they think is a compelling discussion to the board of supervisors, the board will make the decision. But I would encourage everybody to continue to make your comments and in writing, via email, in person, get it in 3 minutes. But this will be coming back before us soon. So, and if there's changes to the project, we'll try real fast to, because we'll probably have a 2 to 3 week window to analyze and review what's proposed, and then dive in and provide some more comments if something's different. Did I miss anything?
No, you got it all.
Okay. So, and there are no hands up. Oh, okay. So before I get to ending the meeting, Bob reminded me, there's something that we looked at, PAC West had come and talked to us about proposals they have in the business park, and I did not prepare any slides for this, so. And it's primarily north of, why am I blanking on the name?
Golden Foothills.
Yeah, at Carson Crossing where it stubs out, so they have two buildings that are going in that are office buildings that they essentially are getting permits on. They're not a project application, it's a permit application. And then but they also have some changes to, that they're considering looking at different use for the property just south of the Tractor Supply store. In that they would probably look at like 3 retail buildings with 2 quick serve drive-throughs, coffee, fast food, something there. Because they said they had talked to some people in the community, and that seems to be one of the things that people are looking at. A lot of Blackstone neighbors, it's like instead of having to drive all the way up to a White Rock Road, which is a mess in traffic, that there's something that would serve the neighborhood right there. So that's one of the things we're looking at. The other thing they're looking at is parcel splits for they call it R&D. And so I think they had to do an initial traffic, not analysis, but just an initial study to submit some numbers about what that traffic could look like based off of the square footage of any properties they built. So if there's 14 to 16, I'm trying to remember what they're looking at for the split.
It's 14.
14
Yeah.
and 2 like open space or. So that's potentially, I would imagine if they did 14, they would probably do 14 buildings. I don't think they would do one building across.
Well, we
multiple.
don't know that. We just know that they're talking about 1.1 million square feet of warehouse distribution centers. So, while it's not as large as Amazon, it certainly is significant. The question I have for you, actually, request from you, John.
Oh, no.
Can you send to both the Director of Planning and the Director of DOT the questions we had submitted about 9 months ago, just to say we're still waiting for some responses? That would help. Otherwise, I think our subcommittees are going to have to just make some assumptions and write up some findings without having the full knowledge.
Questions, concerns, findings, observations. And I'm glad you reminded me of that because we've been in discussion that our transportation subcommittee has been working for a couple months now. I think we're at a place now where they have sort of an outline of when we go forward with projects that they come in, hey, here's what we're concerned about the process, about how the community is notified, how the community can provide feedback, and how we analyze impacts. And based off of the discussions we've had, I think they're ready. We're hoping for our next meeting is November 8th.
Yep. Yeah,
So-
transportation will be ready next month, as will be environmental will be ready
Okay,
also,
so
and perhaps parks.
we'll see what we have going. And potentially, like I said, Sean Associates might be here to talk about that specific plan amendment for the Village Green. The other thing we'll have to do next month is that our officers for 2024 will have a ballot, a slate that will say, well, here are the officers. And then we'll do an electronic vote like we did last year, where we set it up. Somebody else should set it up because I feel like I'm rigging it or something, but
No, you're honest.
we'll have that next month as well. You won't be here.
No, but I will tell you that the 3 of us have volunteered, unless someone else wants to come on board.
Oh, Resler, John says
And
he's,
John Wrestler as well has
heard from-
volunteered to serve again. We're still waiting to hear from Brooke, whether she wants to.
yeah, if she's able to.
if
She's
able
pretty,
to do it with her workload.
she's a busy lawyer with a young child that plays a lot of baseball. So we will see what we can do. Again, we appreciate anybody who volunteers in any aspect of this, even if you're only doing one project and you want to go back to a real life, which sounds great, by the way. There's one other thing I should share, and Jeff's here tonight. Sorry, Jeff, I'm pointing at you. So for the Bass Lake Regional Park, it looks like you'd be doing a full environmental impact report. Okay, so that, we'll hear about that more next month. And and I think I said at the CSC meeting, I really don't want to review that, but
Yes, she did say that.
yeah, but it's a big project, and I think that some of the directors have talked about, there's some newer directors that have talked about, well, they're pretty far along on this, and there's been a ton of community outreach. The staff has done a lot of work in the community looking at this. It's a big project, and it's the cost of the project. I think we've started at 50 million. We're closer to 100 million now with everything that's considered. it might be appropriate to get that analysis done for what, everything that could happen at that park, and then just come back and build what we can, and over time. Yeah, so, but I appreciate, I mean, the staff has been, I live in the Bass Lake area, so I hear everything and seeing all the surveys, all the outreach the staff has done. Community's looking for something to happen there. Then I think the thing that a lot of people in our community talk about is that, you know, that's a suburban community, and in the middle of it, you have this sort of natural element that you could preserve to some degree. So obviously, there's going to be some recreation aspects, some educational aspects there. No one's excited about, you know, 700 to 1,000 parking spaces, but if that's what the eventual build out is, and that's what it is. But a lot of people really want to take advantage of just that natural element there in the middle of a sea of suburbia, that you can be able to preserve that and offer that for the community. So when that comes up, I guess we'll figure out how we look at that in terms, it's different in terms of environmental review. I don't think, did we do an environmental review for the community park? I don't remember. I was before I got here.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But pickleball, I understand, is under consideration.
Settle down, settle down. So yeah, pickleball apparently is very noisy. So noisier than tennis.
And quick whack.
And quick whack, yeah. So, so with that, I think we've talked about everything under the sun. I was hoping this was going to be really short. I kept everyone here too long. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 8th. It's at 6:30 p.m. in this building. Hopefully that's a quicker meeting, but I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And thank you for sharing your thoughts and your concerns, and for the folks online as well. And we look forward to seeing everybody in November, ? And then December will be our election. So thank you. Stop sharing this.